On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Ross Fubini. He is the managing partner at XYZ Venture Capital. We're going to be talking about the growing AI opportunity. And I think within this AI opportunity, we're going to be talking about, how do you identify a lasting trend, a tide, not a wave? And more importantly, where does that AI opportunity sit? And does the enterprise software model change? Obviously, AI promises a lot of things, especially cost savings, and we'll be hearing from Ross on these points. Ross, excited to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, before we start, XYZ Venture Capital, what kind of companies do you guys typically invest in for everyone to know?
Yeah. So XYZ is a firm I started in 2017. We primarily focus on companies in the enterprise and in the fintech space. We do a lot with companies that are building for the public sector, but we also do quite a bit with systems of record and new core enterprise systems and applications. So Anduril is sort of among the companies in that former bucket, and companies like Oro, which is building a new supply chain management system for vendors. It's like basically a new Ariba is in the second case. And all those businesses, there are 107 in the portfolio. We invested our first money in, and that's really our focus area. I think writing a check between $1 million and $7-8 million to get involved with those businesses. So we're real builders here.
Awesome. I like when you're talking to people who are very close to the operators and executors of the model, because I think you're going to learn a lot, and I'm sure we'll dive into that. To talk about AI. Everyone's talked about AI and everyone's chopped, LLMs and all this, up and down. I don't necessarily think we're going to get into that. I think what's always interesting to me, and I think I mentioned it to you when we spoke first, is, we hear about these trends. It was self-driving, it was blockchain, crypto, now it's AI. We're always looking for the next thing. It's not always easy, as you put it, to identify a tide and a wave. I guess when you're looking at the market and you have certain type companies you're looking for, are there ways or kind of tells that you look to anticipate the tide and wave discussion?
Yeah, let's say so. Open AI, generative AI, is just definitively what I would call a tide right now. So what's a tide? It's so big, it's moving all boats up and down, right? So that's the shift that's going on. And the reason that matters is because when you're viewing the market, when you're talking to a company that we could invest in, we're helping a company plan out how to use AI. That frame is very important to figure out how impactful AI is going to be to their business. So what we're looking for is a place where there's a change in the market, possibly related to the adoption of AI, that's creating a wave. And our term of a wave here is, it really is carrying the metaphor all the way through. You're a surfboard, you're trying to get on it. Like, this thing is happening and moving. If you get to the right position, it's going to occur, and if somebody else gets in that right position, they're going to go past you. If you get cut off, you're going to lose it. But in all aspects, like, this wave is occurring. And mostly the frame comes from the way that we underwrite new founders. When we go, every venture firm has its unique way of looking at founders. What they score, weight, think about, talk about behind the scenes with the founder. Ours is 3 elements. One is just execution. We believe if you move like a son of a bitch, you can survive a lot of things. You can build a lot of things. 2, we believe in having unique insights about a market. We want people that have lived deeply. I'm sure many people in this audience, they have areas that they are experts from, whether it's a whole life journey or whether they just spend time there in detail in the last, whatever months. And the third thing is this wave. Like, there's something shifting to your advantage. And the reason that the AI is so interesting is because there are a bunch of business model changes, companies are changing, where we think that shift is potentially moving to the advantage of the company. And we're basically trying to find those shifts within every part of the landscape and then back the best teams building in them.
Absolutely. I guess as you're looking, and you guys invest early, so seeing things early also is going to go hand in hand with that theory of investing. How soon do you want to move into that space? And I guess the reason I'm asking is because obviously you're not always going to see that trend, that tide, and you don't want everyone to see it, because then it's like if you're investing in anything, by the time everyone's realized it, you're probably late, especially if you're looking for the biggest bang. How do you personally kind of try to identify some of those trends?
So years ago, I worked at Netscape in the early days. Netscape was one of the original browser companies. And one of the things that people don't know is, in addition to building the browser, they really and truly were building the internet. And what does that mean? Netscape built one of the first web servers. It built one of the first, security servers, and I worked on that. Built many of the servers that now power the internet. So at the time that I was there, the team two cubes over was the calendar server, building a backend for calendars. Turns out the calendar server didn't matter at all. It was very well staffed, but that was not a business. Literally two cubes over the other way was Tim Howe's in the LDAP team. For those that don't know, LDAP is the protocol that's used for basic identity management. So that's standard one, but Active Directory and now Okta are the dominant solutions, and there's no other solution out there. Meanwhile, there was this other group, again, two cubes to the other direction, that was building the proxy server. And in my memory, we didn't even care about the proxy server. I actually think we sold it, we being Netscape. And that was the beginning of $50 billion, hundreds of $1 billion CDN business. This is the business that speeds up the delivery of content on the internet. So my comment there is, I think right now it's genuinely hard to figure out where the opportunity is, both now and where it's going to be. Where is that thing that doesn't matter at all? Where's the thing that definitely matters, but you're not structurally able to capture that value? And where's the thing that you should go build? So I think it's just hard, period, to pick. The thing that's interesting and exciting, I think, is that there is transformation that's happening across every part of the industry. I mentioned before, we have a pretty big portfolio. I would say, without hyperbole, all but 4, maybe 5 of our companies are now using generative AI in some way. Some of them are relatively new and are building tooling that improve model performance in the world. Some of them are companies that are one of the largest commercial insurance brokers in the world. They're using AI as part of creating agents that would answer questions around your benefits. So I think that the usage of AI is going to be ubiquitous, and we're just still trying to figure out which kind of applications are going to have the most value. And it's changing rapidly because what gets delivered by the core systems is changing. I think what you can do with those core systems, we're still very much discovering via RAG and other new infrastructures. And then lastly, as you sort of walk up the intellectual stack, there are opportunities where you're actually not going to buy a new AI piece of software. You're going to buy a lawyer that actually just is a piece of that is AI powered. You're not going to, it's not McKinsey buying some software. It's like you're just going to build a new consulting company. And we've looked at and got pretty serious about a few of those as well. So that's a real technology powered service, but has true, 60, 70% durable multiples or margins.
That's quite. That's awesome. Actually, I was just thinking that we could probably do a whole episode on your time at Netscape, and it's quite interesting because you mentioned obviously what would be a CDN type business back then wasn't even high on the vision board of what could be. It's very difficult. You're talking about how to leverage something that's emerging. People are going to try different things. When you look at this AI opportunity, right? And obviously you can't know for sure what's going to succeed. But as you're looking at the AI opportunity, you just mentioned you're not going to pay for just a lawyer app you're going to pay for a lawyer, or you're going to pay for something that actually will be able to represent that intellect. Is that the AI opportunity, the larger scope? Because obviously, as we see the personal use, people are kind of enamored with what a chat GPT can do. It's really cool, but that seems to be very, very low hanging fruit in the scope of this all.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the things that are just the shallow wrappers around ChatGPT are just not going to be interesting. I think the stuff that's going to be interesting is places where, maybe two examples. One is where you really bring human in the loop, real logic, data, understanding, so that not let's use this consulting example, that I can't just answer a question for you, generate a podcast script or a background, but I can actually do a really detailed research analysis paper that takes into account internal data that I've got, that takes into account maybe an expert, but either training a model or giving you new unique data, so that what gets generated is a consulting is a competitive report or a report on pricing in some industry. So you're really taking the generative AI aspects, but you're powering it with really meaningful data that you uniquely have and organized, and then you're probably tuning it and or just frankly writing information. So the result of that is that you could build a mid-market consulting company that where you could have 50% margins, and you could serve hundreds of customers, where in the before generative AI times you just could not do that. You can't do the client to consultant pairing. You couldn't guarantee the quality of the product. You couldn't walk across multiple verticals. That's what keeps the small businesses small. So that's the possibility to go build. The second thing that I think is interesting, and this frankly we just haven't seen that much of, is new enterprise systems. So it's going and rebuilding an existing business, whether it's CRM or manufacturing or procurement, or any any like real structural system with an AI lens built into it. Examples of this that have been done is new IDEs, new development environments for engineers. People are building new ones that are AI, have AI embedded at the center of it, and then workflows around it. These implementations assume that the bulk of the engineer's work is going to begin with a bunch of generated content, and so the value of the IDE is going to be the experience around it. I don't know if these companies are going to work. We haven't invested in them, but it's an interesting approach to go on. One thing to make them both interesting and challenging to invest in this AI world right now, the ROFR, the right of first refusal, for the opportunity goes to the incumbent right now. And it's because, the number of pitches we've got for we're the AI-driven version of Salesforce. It's like, I got news for you, like Salesforce is the AI-driven version of Salesforce, and they are adopting that technology really, really rapidly. So you need one of two things, I think, to be true. One, in this example, one is that you figured out something about like your generative AI system with the workflow around it is going to be different than what Salesforce does in some way. This probably exists most vividly in, say, support, where Zendesk and others, Intercom even, which has done a great job with AI, they're really designed around just tracking this huge volume of tickets, which is very different workflow than tickets just flowing through. You're dealing with exception cases. So I think there's something to do there in that example, but you've got to have this very deep view. And then lastly, and you and I talked about this at length, there's one opportunity that really exists, a subtle but important one around pricing. All these products price per seat. And so if you're going to companies saying, hey, I'm going to not only save you money, but you're going to be able to like repurpose, lay off all those people, your pricing, if it's per seat, it's a real tension, because the thing you're saying is have a half or 1/10 the people, but you're still per seat pricing. that's both a challenge. It's also an opportunity if the person you're displacing as a per seat structure. So there are elements like that of the go to market that are going to be exciting and watch unfold. And frankly, all this we're just so early in because what are we like less than a year, 8 months? I don't know, people paying attention to this space. So we're just very early in real meaningful products getting built, people with real of that lived experience coming and understanding how generative AI matters to that product. But it's there's going to be things here, but it definitely feels like a time of a selection matters a lot as the investor and also as the founder of where you go spend your time.
Do you think, some of the solutions you mentioned, obviously, beating Salesforce and being the AI Salesforce seems hard because they already have mastered a CRM across every type of industry, and that's challenging. Is a narrow application of AI, meaning, I want to be the CRM within just furniture manufacturing, and I'm going to incorporate AI to help them with supply chain within there. Is that an opportunity to start making inroads against incumbents out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's choosing a place again where the AI has a lot of value and maybe where the incumbent is structurally weak. So let's imagine a real example of this together, just because that's fun. Which is imagine we want to go do this, and I don't know much about furniture manufacturing, but I know a bit about healthcare. So let's say we're going to go to hospital systems and say we're going to improve your not only your patient engagement but your revenue per customer. Well, our generative AI solution might be a good solve for the fact that hospitals are historically terrible at marketing. Because now I'm using my generative AI tools to go generate all the marketing and communication and do it in a compliant way. And then secondly, I'm going to bolt in a bunch of very good technology, maybe generative AI, maybe just good data infrastructure that's going to work against your electronic medical records and your patient history. And so I can build something that's transformatively that's a has a better core than maybe a generic CRM system. So in that story I'm just making up, I think it's a massive category, right? Picking healthcare. It's one that Salesforce, as an example, has a presence but is not dominant. And then we're trying to, in this story, construct an argument that maybe this is I'm going to go, Amir, convince you and I to go start a company to build a technology that where the AI is solving a problem that previously felt like very unsolvable, which was the communication we give out to the end user, and then behind that, the personalization of that content. So I think that kind of business is there to go build, and the more difficult it is to take that to market, like that becomes a moat, or the more uniqueness of how we integrate it in a compliant way, that's our moat, or maybe we just move faster than everybody else, and that's our moat. But different degrees of complexity. But yes, I think those are the kinds of things you're looking for. And I think those opportunities exist in lots and lots and lots of places.
How do you envision? I know we're not there. It's still early, and obviously, you just came up with a great, use case of where you can make inroads. You found, identified the factors that go into that. When you're looking at the larger incumbents, the Microsofts, the Salesforces that go back to that per seat licensing structure, and all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing some of these new companies present other licensing revenue models. How is that going to impact these larger companies that, per seat is how they really represent? I mean, you go to the cloud, we're talking about down to the, minute usage, second usage. There's a lot of impacts of this consumption model. Are we going to potentially see them shift? Are they going to, is that going to potentially be a weak spot, or what do you just envision that, playing out down the road?
I want to talk through things around change. So I think it's going to change, period, because I think in some cases the per seat licensing is just not going to hold up. The whole purpose of the technology, say Salesforce Service Cloud, Zendesk, these are all good examples. A successful adoption of generative AI, you might get sold on is you're going to pay, you're going to have half the support team in tier one support. Like that might be friends of company, it could be thousands of people tens of thousands in some cases, and certainly hundreds or tens for small companies. So massive change. And there's only, as a company, again, I don't run those businesses, but as a company, if you imagine bringing all this value, you can't say, yeah, and you're going to pay us double, triple, 4x per seat. Like that's not going to work. Now, I suspect what's going to happen in those processes is there's going to be utilization-based pricing. There's going to be sort of core optimization-based pricing. That we're going to see some new thing that's going to come along that is related to consumption, related to usage, and like in everything, the what I see in my crystal ball is a combination of some of that will be a real cost. Okay, this is what we pay AWS, we pay OpenAI, this is what we pay our compute cloud vendor that's running our models, and then that price tied to value creation, which is okay. Hey, you let half those people go. You actually created all of this value. We want to get paid for that value. It'll probably just move over to this compute structure. The thing that the opportunity, so to come back to, so let's just believe these with all its vagaries, the shift's going to happen. The opportunity is that some markets, some vendors, some sales teams just won't move at velocity in these changes. So an example of this is years ago when I was at Symantec, and I had a big job, but I'm still relatively speaking a little woodchuck. I didn't have my hand on the CEO wheel or anything like that, so it's not overstated. But Symantec, at the time I was there, was really going through a change that maybe some people in the audience still remember. It was not long ago, from perpetual licenses to SaaS software. And so we were really shifting from people who are used to like sales reps getting comp for $8 million deals, and they were coming into SaaS licensing competitors. They're saying like, well, we're only $400K a month. We're a little bit cheaper, and we're paced out, or maybe even over $100K a month because it's some competitor trying to come in and win against you. Or there's a trial plan, a rollout plan, like all the things that we now take for granted. Like those were attacks that were done to that business very, very, very successfully. And it's because under the covers, they when inside them, they have structural, they have comp plans, they have budgets, they have channel partners. They're getting comped in some ways. So that's all basically that's just big company bureaucratic drag. And so that's the opportunities to go compete very quickly where this pricing opportunity could show up. So that I think again makes it for an exciting time. You do need to begin with the product insight. It just means that you can potentially get real go-to-market velocity in displacing these incumbent vendors with new systems.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually interesting. As you're talking, I was thinking about something like a security product like CrowdStrike, where, if their tool is becoming more AI and less person, how do you value the sophistication of security? And you mentioned a consulting company that is AI based, that's like a McKinsey. How do you deliver that project? Obviously, it's no longer per person per hour. I mean, you have to change some of these structures, but I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be definitely some of the shifts. I guess one thing I was going to ask you, and I think as a founder, as a technologist, when you're seeing these trends, to kind of come back to that, and you're trying to evaluate early. Obviously, for every Amazon, there's a pets.com, Books A Million. There's a Barnes and Noble. Do you see, I guess, this AI growth mindset, this opportunity? It seems like a lot of people are seeing it early. Salesforce is investing tons of money. Microsoft, tons of. It's not like one of those where they're missing the opportunity. Down to execution might be, or maybe competitors emerging. But how might this be different?
This opportunity, you keep using metaphors. I think in this case they're useful. I think this opportunity is showing up the way that mobile did, but also much more quickly. So the way that mobile showed up is it turns out mobile was going to be relevant to every business. There was going to be a mobile app, and anyone could go build a mobile app. There might be people that built it sooner rather than later. They will build a prettier one sooner rather than later and be slightly advantaged. But anyone can go and build one. And again, I think that's what's going to happen with AI is it's going to get adopted by all the different incumbents. The two, I guess we've been looking for three big opportunities as investors. So it's one lens I can give you. It's someone I'm good at. One is picks and shovels. So it turns out whether it's CDN or pick other examples or in mobile, there's lots of opportunities in mobile toolkits, things that help people build and build faster. You can build the good or bad ones, but I think sort of being in the picks and shovels business is definitely talking our own book, but we like that part a lot. And I think there's a lot to do there. The second is that you got to figure out where as we were just discussing, where your generative AI solution is wildly improved. So let's take banking. That one happened relatively recently. Turns out mobile banking and Chime, and then many other challengers created a really differentiated product for customers versus whatever Wells or Chase was initially putting out. So you could get very fast adoption of customers and build momentum that way. So what is the equivalent of generative AI? Where is my use of generative AI able to get me much faster adoption of my product than anyone anticipated, than would have been possible before. And I think that's one area of value that I'm interested in, because the last is this system, like we really are going to go rebuild the system. We're going to build a new BI system, a new CRM along these lines that we just discussed. But you're looking for these structural advantages that got to go play out. The Holy Grail, the real thing you want to do is you want to find the Instacarts, you want to find the Ubers, like something that couldn't have existed without the product before, without generative AI, and those we can't see yet, but they're coming too. Where we're just going to get a whole new experience where you just could not have built Uber, you could not build logistics in that way without mobile. So I can't quite see what those companies are at scale yet, but that's another pattern. So the net result of this is we've done a number of investments in the picks and shovels area because it's very clear cut. We've done a few, I think two, which are like these new systems of record, and we're kind of on the lookout for this third group. I think the biggest thing, Amir, is that we're going in with no naivete. To your point, that everyone is going to adopt these AI products very, very quickly, and they're trying to figure out what's relevant to them. So you can't assume you're going to find somebody asleep at the wheel. Might happen, but it's going to be a ubiquitous change.
Oh, I like that. I love, especially the picks and shovels. I think that's smart money. Everything you said makes sense. A final question for you, because I'm just curious. You see companies that are not software companies. You see companies that are legacy companies that use and consume software, but they're not necessarily producers of software, and they're trying to figure out how to leverage AI. There's legacy brands, they're trying to implement AI. It's dangerous because at some point they don't have the core competency of producing software, but they see the opportunity. There might not be solutions for them because no one's built it, and they might be attempting to get in there. And obviously this is opportunity for some of these smaller players to fill these voids we've been talking about. When you look at this at the enterprise level, and you're like, you mentioned banks, that's as an example in the mobile. When we're thinking now about the AI application adoption of these enterprise companies, is it dangerous for them to think that they can go in and start behaving like have a little mini Salesforce AI team that are trying to produce results, or they really need to be consumers of this AI tools that are coming down the pike and leave the actual production to the software companies?
So specifics matter to have a thoughtful answer, but let me tell you a couple of things I've seen. So one is I've been amazed with companies like Bloomberg willingness to just release products. And my comment here is I think that consumers and, well, these are employees or whatever we call business users, are actually getting quite resilient to products that are helpful to them, to things in the productivity space. Are imperfect. Like think Google search. You're just searching Google, it's imperfect. The first answer is not always the right one. You're hunting for, hell, the internet's full of bullshit that's not true, but you've learned how to navigate that. I think the productivity benefit is so high in for some of these businesses. So there's a willingness of the consumer experiences. This is going to make me 10x better, but there's still going to be things I got to fix in here. And I think Bloomberg is an example of that. I think code generation for developers. You talk to developers, good ones, they are literally moving 5 to 10x faster because of code generation. Not in all cases, because you have to go write software, but like the generation part. So I think that's going to work because consumers are going to change. The expectations are going to be more modest. Second thing I'd say, this is observing. Second thing is an opportunity, which is if you're at Home Depot, you want to release a product using generative AI. If you're wrong and like you recommend the wrong wood, or you auto generate, a house with like where 2x4s go through each other, whatever's the thing, and it looks dumb. You're not in that first case. You're worried your customers are going to think your thing is broken. You're going to be exposed to real risk. There's that lawyer that used generative AI and wrote a brief that made no sense. All those cases, I think that's actually going to happen. But there's going to be tooling and products that are going to help those companies build products, similar to, we're using a lot of metaphors, but similar to the e-commerce. I think that's they're going to have to build that stuff, and there's either going to be whole products that are going to get built, and there's opportunity to build tools for the Home Depots of the world. And I mean, I saw 2 pitches today that were along those lines. They're working with Fortune 100 companies that want to adopt generative AI, and they're gonna help them do that in a really sensible fashion. So that's what I see there in the world. So I think these generative AI tools are going to take hold, and they're going to get adopted within all these companies. There's maybe the last group, which is of companies that really are unable to build things, whether through in-house or consulting, like they just can't do it. I think those are the companies that are most in danger. People that take a company that say has built their business on a big SEO net, like I don't know, WebMD, or I'm trying to think of a good meaty one. Those people, their advantages around content are really going to get challenged. Or we were talking before, to come full circle on the consultant, the people that's really good at generating these customized research reports. That's what generative AI is really going to be used for. If I give you one last thing that's a big unknown for me, so it's like code generation is going to be a big deal. Generation of content and all the ways we just discovered, going to be a big deal. Some through chat, some through documents. The new one that I can't tell is really visual generation. My son's 11, had a project yesterday where he had to generate a character, and the teacher said you could use tools to do it. So we opened up Remix, and 30 seconds later, he had generated this new demigod character to put into a story, in a visual for that. It's a trivial example, but like Remix, I think got released, I don't know, 4 months ago. No, excuse me, like 4 weeks ago. It's a new app, and I think we're on the precipice of visual tools and chains, and we'll see it in a scary way in deep fakes through the election for sure. But this transformation, whether to static images or to movies, is coming really fast, and that change is something I think that's just gonna surprise all of us, and then that will create more business opportunities to I don't know, to create worlds that those characters are in, and ways to experience them, or maybe safety and control so they don't do the wrong things. But I think the change is accelerating. Is my takeaway.
I love it, Ross. I actually I love your thoughts. I love the depth of experience and how you see this playing out. You've identified some areas that are going to be interesting for us to look back on. Maybe we'll have you on down the road to kind of look back and see how some of this unfolded as we're in the early stages. But thank you for your time. If somebody wants to reach out to you, obviously to get to know XYZ better, or just talk to you about something you mentioned on the show, what is a good way of touching base with you?
So our website is xyz.vc, and you can reach me there, or you can send me an email at Fubini, F-U, B as in boy, I-N-I, at xyz.vc.
Awesome.
Easy to do.
Absolutely. I like that one. Thank you again, Ross, for being on. Thanks for sharing your time and your insights.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's it for the episode. Be back again, different guest, different topic. Two things. One, this is an awesome episode. Please share it with somebody else that's interested in AI, emerging technologies. I think there's a lot of things in there. Founders will probably find this a good episode as well. Share it as much as you can. Secondly, like, subscribe, leave me a review. Let me know how we're doing. I'd love to get that feedback. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.